You can see how amber it turned out. Remember that bright pink balloon? It's now kind of a dirty orange pink. And that's a perfect basis for a nice amber fire glow burst. Now if you look over here, lined up on my gun rack on this filthy wall, here's the other four colors in the burst. We've got a red orange, we've got a red brown, we've got a brown, and we have, believe it or not, purple? Interesting. The reason is these are transparent colors. So what we're doing is we're layering colors. So whenever, for instance, we put a red over an amber, we're going to get closer to an orange than a red, and that's what we're going for right now. So first we'll spray the red over the amber, then we're going to spray the reddish brown and move on through the colors until the darkest colors are on the outside edge of the burst. This little gun thing is a real nice convenience to have this interchangeable gun. It has little liners so that you can either store the paint like that or just dispose of the liners. It's very handy. Okay, now we're going to adjust this to start doing bursts. You see how wide it is there? And by the way, I've cleaned the gun and solvent in between colors. Now that's putting out an awful lot of paint, so I'm going to crank it in a little bit. You may see me adjust it while I'm spraying. Okay, and we'll start where I said I was going to start. At that inside corner between the neck joint and the body. Here we go. Okay, we got to open it up a little. You can see the orange, and it's red, but it's looking orange when it goes on there. And I leave the very edge light. Now I do that little pocket in the orange, and I spread the orange down to about there. And I spread it up. So you can see it's deepest in there, and then it eases up as we move along. Now I'll go on the bottom. The very bottom is dark, so I'll spray it fairly dark. And then we go up and taper the color off so that it's dark at the bottom and it ends up being just amber on the two tips. Okay? Now I'm going to do the edge of the neck. There's our amber, and then right up to the first tuning key and then over the top of the last tuning key there. Now look here, that neck joint up to there and down to there is going to be amber. Same thing with the top, because we want a light color fade in there. And the very top of the headstock gets the darkest color. Now once again, I'm spraying the orange there, hitting the side of the neck, and if you look, the sides of the neck are orange, which is actually the red over the amber. The center is still the pure amber. And we want the two sides to be even. The heel is dark, and the heel joint is dark. Okay? And then I come back. Now here we are, we're on the reverse side of the body. And light color, dark color. Dark color in the middle. Tapering it off. So as you can see, the darkest areas of this guitar are going to be a sum of all of the transparent colors built on top of each other. A little very dark at the bottom, and I ease it up. So that once again, the widest point of the hip and the shoulder up here, those are the lightest. The next thing I'm going to do is the front of the headstock. And what we do is we do a kind of a fade that follows the line of the tuners. So it's at a slight angle, dark here to light here, and you'll see. And I'll come back and hit it again. We don't want to get too much paint on there or it'll run, and you'll begin to see more of the color contrast. Now this is the tricky part, because you got to have a pretty sure hand with this. I'm going to do, there's the burst all the way around the outside, and I'm going for about something like a 3 or 3.5 inch band of the red orange. There goes the compressor again. Back as well. And every band I do of a different with a narrow band of a dark color right at the edge near the binding. Now once again, I'm going to touch these guys up because they need it. And remember I said I was going to come back and do the headstock warm-up coat, which is exactly what's going on now. And that's it. That's our first color. See we let this dry for a few minutes. You can see the orangish red burst beginning to develop here, and you can see the grain showing through. It's got a really nice book-matched grain to it. So now what we're going to do is a slightly darker red, then we're going to go to a brown, and we're going to go to the purple. When it's all done, then we're going to throw a clear coat on it, but the clear coat is going to have to wait till the next episode, as we call it, right? Alright. I haven't done anything to change the gun, I've just changed the color in it. It still has all of the needles, it's exactly where it was. You can see it's got a narrower pattern, very little fluid flow. That thing's cranked in almost all the way. And the air is once again at 22 psi. Alright, we're going to start with our usual place, which is that corner between the neck and the body. And you notice I'm always rotating this thing, kind of playing with the light. I've got light on one side of the booth and I want to be able to follow it. A lot of the times it's the reflections that tells me how wet the paint is and how thick it is. Alright, here we go. Next color. And again, we're going dark. But I'm not fanning this out nearly as far as I did when I sprayed that first red-orange color. So in other words, it's going brown, but then it's fading to the red-orange and fading to the amber. So we already have three colors going. You can see the lovely tone it's getting here now. And now we'll do top of the headstock, back of the neck, neck heel. And now I turn around, I do the side of the neck here. And then what I want to do is I want to check that both sides of the neck look the same. A little bit on the top of the headstock here. Now we'll rotate it around and we're going to do the other side. Which means a little bit there. Darkest at the center, right? Fade it down a little bit. Rotate the pressure. Start at the bottom, darkest at the bottom, and fade it up. Right? So now our sides are done. Now I'm going to move to the front and then the back. We rotate it around. Front of the headstock. Yes, okay, that looks good. And now we'll take it around here. And remember, we're narrowing the burst now. So this is going to be a narrower band of color than the original red-orange was. Okay, looking good. Now we'll go around to the back. And then we're going to let it dry once more. Now this takes a steady hand, and you've got to work real consistently. You can't stop the gun. You can't slow the gun down because the thickness of the candy color and therefore the darkness or brightness of the colors is heavily dependent on how smooth you can fly this in terms of the speed, the distance of the gun from the guitar has a lot to do with how wide the pattern is. As you pull back, the pattern gets wider. So we're going to always have to do the same distance, otherwise the pattern is going to vary all over. Okay, I'm going to put a little more up here. Look at this, that's looking pretty good. Rough looks okay, a couple of little areas here you might want to darken up. And in every case, you're going by eye. You can stand back and look at it. If it looks nice and even, then you're in the right ballpark. Notice I don't do any burst around here because there's a pick guard that goes there. Okay, now we're going to let it dry for a couple minutes. Then I'm going to come back and do the next color, which is a deeper reddish brown, and you'll start to get that antique feel that an amber Fireglow paint job has. We have the amber. We have the red orange. And we have the darker reddish orange, almost a brown. Now I've got a true brown here, and then we'll wrap it up with a dark violet around the edges, which actually, once everything shows through, is going to be a transparent chocolate brown. Because when you add all these colors up and you throw violet over them, it ends up brown, not violet. Okay, same gun settings again. I'm going to start at my same place where I always start, right? That joint. And we'll just do it the way we did it before. Notice I'm following the same pattern every time. See how nice and contrasty it's getting. We're getting some real nice brown tones here. Back here. Away. See how this pattern also is getting narrower and narrower. When I started out with the orange, I was going all the way up to here and all the way down to here. Now I'm just hitting the center section. Then I simply flip around and we'll do the remaining bottom piece. Okay, now it's time to do the front and the back. That looks pretty good up there. Good. Alright, start with the front. Again, narrower pattern, narrower all the time. I'm letting it bleed off the edge of the guitar. Looking pretty good. Then go around to that gorgeous flamed back. Okay. Now it may appear to be lighter here, but that's just because of the grain of the wood. When it runs parallel with the grain, it looks a little bit darker. When it's running at an angle to the grain, it seems to lighten up. We'll clean that up a little bit when we add the purple, the final color. Now I'm just going to kind of check over it and make sure everything's kind of even, and I have the right tones on there, as much darkness as I want. Okay? Now, again, we're in a booth here where the lighting runs a little bit cool because I don't use color-corrected bulbs. And also, there's about 160 watts in this whole booth. So it's nowhere near as bright as daylight. And when you take this thing out into the daylight, and as I'll show you in a later video, it is really, really going to pop. The color is going to be luminous. And there's also something else that happens that has to do with our clear coat. You can see right now, you can see some of the grain, but what you can't see is the flop that you get when you just move it a little bit. In French it's called chatoyant, but it's where the grain turns light and dark in the book match, and you can see the ripples. That goes flat until we get clear coat on it. And the clear coat adds the depth. It's simply that this paint itself doesn't have any clear, it's just a tint. So it tends to go flat once it's dry, and you can't pick up on that wonderful depth of the grain. So once we clear coat it, which will be the next installment, you'll be able to see that grain really coming out again. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry, and we're going to put the last dark purple